The Fukushima daiichi nuclear disaster has posed a threat to the marine food chains in the Pacific Ocean. The Fukushima daiichi disaster has resulted in the contamination of toxic chemicals into the ocean waters of Japan. It has been reported that plankton and seaweed have been absorbing toxic hydrocarbons released into the ocean. Greenpeace data showed that the seaweed contamination levels are currently 50 times higher than set safety limits. Because plankton is one of the most consumed creatures to sustain the marine food chains, if it absorbs the potent chemicals, it could potentially reduce the protein available to sustain mammalian life along the Japanese coast and also into the Pacific Ocean. If one organism in the food chain is contaminated and consumed by another creature, the contamination can rapidly spread throughout the ocean. If the plankton die off, the entire food chain in the Pacific Ocean will be forced to undergo change. The seaweed will die, the number of fish in the ocean will decrease, and the staples in the Japanese diet will be unavailable. Japan is one of the top fishing countries in the world and is one of the top 2 countries in the world to have the highest level of fish consumption in their diet. Thus, if the tuna population decreases in the major fishing sites in Japan, this could potentially cause economic downturn due to the scarcity of yellowfin, albacore, southern, and big-eyed tuna. Scientists originally did not raise a high level of concern for the effect contamination can have on the marine biome. Some originally thought that the pollutants would dissolve in the ocean in a short matter of time. Because the chemicals pass through the gills of the fish and the toxic compounds can be excreted in the creature's species and sink in the water, if the pollutants are carried in a cold current, the chemical compounds can sink because of their density and carry them into the depths of the ocean, keeping the toxins in circulation throughout all the oceans in the world to a certain degree.
The distribution and entire range of radioactive compounds that have been released into the ocean are unknown. However, elevated concentrations of radioactive cesium and iodine have been found in small fish a few miles south of Fukushima. Radioactive elements such as iodine-131 and cesium-137 can be absorbed by phytoplankton, zooplankton, kelp, and other marine life, moving up the food chain, eventually reaching humans. How the radioactive elements released from the power plant behave depends on their chemical properties and reactivity. The solubility of radionuclides determines absorption and activity with other molecules. Fish take in radioactive iodine by thyroid tissue, which is also absorbed by seaweed and kelp. Because cesium reacts similar to potassium, marine organisms can take it in by muscle. Just like a human takes in radiation through inhalation or other organs, fish can take in radiation through their gills, entering the bloodstream, lungs, and other structures, possibly causing cancer or even death.
The radiation levels that resulted from the Fukushima daiichi accident were not likely to result in death. Radiation consists of different types of subatomic particles, such as gamma rays, neutrons, electrons, and alpha particles, which travel at up to 100,000 miles a second and can easily penetrate deep into the body, making radiation in high doses threatening to human health. Cancer, for example, can result from exposure to high levels of radiation. Radiation is measured in millisieverts, abbreviated MSV. Each year, a resident of the United States receives an average dose of about 2 millisieverts. A single dose of 1,000 millisieverts could cause radiation sickness, nausea, but not death. A 10,000 millisievert dosage would result in fatality within weeks. The max radiation levels recorded at the Fukushima plant on March 14th were 400 millisieverts per hour. In context, the levels of radiation emitted due to the Fukushima accident were relatively low. The radiation doses indicate the increased risk of cancer incident would be 0.002% for a member of the Japanese public, and the increased risk of death from cancer would be 0.001%.
The American Nuclear Society Special Committee on Fukushima collected information that has been published in the open literature for the radiation exposure of workers and the release and deposition of radioactive materials. The particles that were released in the Fukushima incident were cesium-137, iodine-31, and cesium-134. Other nuclear rays that were emitted during the Fukushima incident are said to penetrate living tissue because they have no electrical charge. Out of the most recent monitoring period, no observable health effects has been reported in any of the workers. The standard worker dose limit for Japanese workers in the Fukushima daiichi incident are 50 MSVs per year and 100 MSVs per year over the 5-year period. Before the accident, the emergency dose limit was set at 100 MSVs per year, but was raised to 250 MSVs per year to allow workers to respond to the serious incident and see if their initial health conditions would change. Yet as of July 2011, scientists estimate the occupational worker who received a dose of 0.1 SV has 1% increase of developing a cancer later in his or her life. And although 408 workers have received doses above the normal annual limit of 50 MSVs, the average dose for emergency workers is still relatively low and has decreased steadily during the months following the incident. At this time, there are not enough data collected and publicly reported by the Japanese government to make any definitive conclusions on the long-term health effects related to the Fukushima incident.